Today is Monday, December 5th, 2022. Back for another daily review on the NASDAQ. And guys, today I made a number of kind of rookie mistakes that I'm embarrassed about, but full transparency, I'm about to reveal what happened. It wasn't devastating, wasn't catastrophic. I didn't take any huge losses, but just an example of how I was married to a bias and wasn't really paying attention to what was right in front of my face, and then reacted emotionally when I didn't get involved on the right side of the market and forced a trade that really wasn't there and took an unnecessary hit, which really just really shouldn't happen, but we're going to learn from and we're going to move on from. So let's get into it. Let's start off with where we are on the daily chart today. We had an inside bar where we closed near the low. We did not see any follow through the upside after Friday, which showed this big wick reacting off of the imbalance here from the day before, or from Wednesday's candle. So what happened? Let's go back now into looking at the lower time frame, starting on the 1 hour. Actually, let's first go to the 30 minutes so I can put the open for New York Stock Exchange. Okay, there we are. So as I said, now let's go back to the 1 hour. Now, as I said in my forecast yesterday, for me to be long, what I was looking for, one of two things, but the one that's more relevant for today was I was looking for price to try to make a lower low somewhere around here, and then reject, create an imbalance, and then buy around here in this imaginary imbalance. So that was what I was saying would be like kind of what I was looking for overnight at the time of New York Open. Hopefully some of this would have played out, and then that would have set the table for a nice long for a continuation higher. So at the time of New York Open, I did not get that. So then it just became a question of maybe buying in anticipation of that. So that's obviously a riskier proposition than already seeing the failure of a lower low and the creation of a bullish imbalance to the upside. So if I'm going to get in on that, I need a lot of confluence that that's actually going to play out. Instead, what did we get? We got Asia range. London tried to break the range. Just say Asia range. London first attempted to break, didn't do it. Went sideways a little bit longer. Then we get the breakdown here, the clear breakdown, right before New York Stock Exchange open, creating this order block, which got retested at the start of the open. And then as you can see what happened. So before we see the rest of this, let's just go into the replay. There's really no reason to second guess the structure that we're seeing. On this time frame, we have to respect the structure. We have a high and a low. We have another point here, this high, and then a lower low. We retraced, formed a lower high as of now, and we're breaking down here. We're creating swing lows that are being violated, and swing highs are staying respected. So if we go lower here, what was the trade that I took? I'll show you. We saw a breakdown. I saw a low here. This was stupid. This is not even a session low. It's an afternoon session low, I guess, from the New York session on Friday that got taken. Normally, I look at previous days highs and low, weeks highs and low, high of day or low of day. So whatever the current high of day or low of day, that's a good liquidity point. And then session, so like a London session, New York session. But this is not a New York session low. The New York session low would have been here. This is the New York session afternoon session low, so not as compelling of a level. Then we go to the 5 minutes. So what did I do? I saw us reject the lows here. Let's get rid of that. I saw us rejecting the lows here, creating this gap. The candle closes were okay. There's also gaps on the lower time frame. 3 minute, 2 minute, just take my word for it. There's gaps there too. So I saw that confluence. I put the buy trade on. And, there's not a great target here. I kind of thought that these clean highs, actually, I do like that as a target if I had better reason to be buying here, but it's kind of a clean level here. Asia high. I was expecting bullishness to potentially kick in. Anyway, what happens is I get triggered in. I'm actually not super upset about this trade because once we pushed up into this zone here, I did move my stop to break even or just below, basically right here. It's an insignificant loss. Pretty much just count that as a break even. But the reason why I'm kind of annoyed is because of what happened. So I was annoyed that I didn't just prioritize this as the short, because this would have been a very valid short. We have New York session open. I mean, it's just textbook. We push up, take the short-term high here into this imbalance, into this 1 hour order block. We have valid targets to the downside. We go with the trend of the day. So the fact that we have this liquidity grab into an imbalance on the 15-minute as well, and a breakdown, this is just a optimal trade entry. Could have just done a fib retracement into this 5-minute imbalance, order block, whatever you want to call it. Just works on all time frames, and I was sort of blind to it because of my bullish bias that hadn't even really been triggered according to my forecast from yesterday, where I was waiting for kind of an H1 or M30 bullish imbalance to the upside before I was going to be considering buying. So this was overly aggressive long. I didn't get too much, but just to miss out on that short was pretty annoying for me. And then the stupidest trade that I took today, it was just me, again, just like seeing this drop. Oh, I know what happened too. I missed a trade that, I'm not going to break all of this down, but we had this liquidity grab in the afternoon, and I was right here ready to sell. Normally I would sell right here at the top of this, at the bottom of this imbalance, but for whatever reason, I decided to put my limit order kind of in the halfway point. It's just greed, or just, I thought, I wasn't really thinking it would go all the way down, and I didn't like the risk to reward, below this low. So I just got kind of greedy, got too fancy, put my limit up here, didn't get filled, and then saw price just kind of run further to the downside. So that kind of, again, just got me emotional, I guess, because then once I saw this movement up, which there's really nothing that compelling about it, I took this trade right here. So dumb. So dumb. And I was just playing a retracement. But there's really no reason that we had not taken out anything here. The reason why I justify it was, okay, we had this long wick, and this is kind of the halfway point at the time of the entry to the wick, and maybe and S&P had already made a low, had already taken out the low, and NASDAQ hadn't. So I thought, okay, maybe we're going to push up here. But this is not enough to warrant a trade. Thankfully, I only went half risk, but I know that for a fact that this was just because I missed out on the ideal short from up above. I took the break even and I got swerved on the short here. And so this was just sort of like me, I guess I'd spent all this time looking at the charts up till then and saw like the faintest of setups, which I would barely even qualify this as a legitimate setup. Doesn't really fit my plan. And I took it, and just fully transparent. It was a bad decision, but fortunately for me, it totals to about 0.5%, half 0.5 R on the account. So not devastating by any means, but just frustrating when you see super clean setup that if you hadn't been so fixated on a long bias, you probably would have seen this. So normally I try to, even when I have a bias, I still try to keep an open mind to either direction playing out, depending on what the price action is at the time of New York Open. So I think just Monday is just rusty for me sometimes after a long weekend, because I didn't really trade Friday or Thursday after since it was non-farm payroll week. So I just attribute it, no excuses, but I just needed, now I need to do 100 push-ups as punishment for this kind of thing. So that's what happened. That's what went wrong today. Before I get into the forecast for NASDAQ tomorrow, I want to take a look at the dollar index chart very quickly, because I do think it's important to stay aware of where we are on the dollar. So we've taken out this big swing low, and we're seeing a little bit of a retracement back up into the range, which can be always expected after taking out a key level like this. But it's important to remember that the structure is still bearish on the daily. And I think if we see price push up into these levels up here, into sort of the premium end of the range, that will be a good time to time our buys on NASDAQ if we do see a bullish setup on NASDAQ. So this is something I'm going to be watching for alongside NASDAQ this week. If we look at the 4 hour, we've pushed down and we've created an imbalance back up. So it does seem likely that we kind of hold this support and then push up a little bit higher to retest some of these levels that got broken below last week. So keep an eye on that. And now let's take a look at what we might be able to expect tomorrow on NASDAQ. I'm not going to let one down day, that's still technically an inside bar, deter me from anything. I mean, yes, this could have been a liquidity grab, double top that then sells off. But, I'd like to see what happens. I mean, even if we go to the bottom of the range here, kind of test these lows again, I still think it's possible to punch up and make a higher high, and then go up to the level up here that I had outlined, or sell off afterwards. So that's the big move that I'm projecting, but I think I just have to learn that, hey, tomorrow we might have another great short setup that takes us down to these lows here, and I got to be involved in it if that happens. If I see the setup, and not just be waiting for longs no matter what. Or if I'm going to be waiting for longs, wait for it. Wait for the right one. Don't just jump into anything because I want to take a trade. That's just weak. So let's take a look. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if price does take out this daily low. If we fill in more of this imbalance, and then we get bullish price action out of Asia range, and if 15-minute change is bullish, then we could take a look at buys again. I'm just going to erase what happened yesterday from my memory and take the lesson from it, but not get fixated on it. It's one small trade that's not going to define the week. I'm going to forget about any minute now anyway. I'm sure that's the thing about any losing trade I take or any mistake. It's important to not let it affect you in terms of the next trade or the next day. And I think a good exercise is to just remember that, hey, in a few days or a week from now, you're not even going to remember this trade emotionally. It's going to just sort of, it'll be so fuzzy. You'll be like, yeah, I think there was something here that I messed up on, but it's not going to define me, and it shouldn't define you if you take a bad trade, make a mistake. Happens to everyone. Just got to learn from it and not repeat the same mistake again. So that's it for tonight. We'll keep an eye on things tomorrow, and hopefully have a better day tomorrow.